session objectives. We're going to provide an overview of the responsibility of the Basecamp managers. We're going to touch on validating and approving member of education awards. We're going to speak about that, so frustrating at times, the dual authentication process for submitting education awards. We're also going to do a touch base on some of the more common mistakes and challenges that Basecamp managers face when approving education awards. And as promised, we are going to engage in a question and answer period, which will allow all of our Basecamp managers and attendees to ask those burning questions about Pathways Basecamp. When we look at our responsibilities as Basecamp managers, we are, in fact, the individuals who are charged and tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that the education awards that are submitted on behalf of our members are an accurate reflection of the hard work and the dedication that our respective members put into this program by way of completing projects that are recognized and, of course, approved on the Pathways Learning platform. So we're going to do just a bit of do's and don'ts for Basecamp managers. And we'll see on the first column a few do's. You want to ensure that when you are approving levels on behalf of your members, that you are doing so in accordance with the validation that those projects that fall within a particular level have actually been completed by the member who is submitting the request. And of course, this goes hand in hand. You actually want to be able to validate that those projects within a particular level are completed. And of course, some don'ts. As Basecamp managers, what we don't want to do is to submit and approve level completions where we are unable as the Basecamp managers to validate that the projects that are encompassed in a particular level have not been completed. And of course, something that all of us may look at with a bit of a question mark, however, it absolutely needs to be stated. There is a reason why we have 3 Basecamp managers within the club. As Basecamp managers, we should not be approving our own level completions. As stated, I'm a vice president education in one of my clubs, and I never, ever, ever go into the Basecamp management system to approve my own level completions. As we navigate through Basecamp and we are excited to celebrate our members' achievements, I want everybody on this call to be mindful of our core values, which of course is integrity, respect, service, and excellence. And I'm a firm believer that everything within this program rests on integrity. We want to ensure that those wonderful goals that we love to celebrate, that they are an accurate reflection of what our members are doing in the program. And of course, by doing so, we demonstrate respect for our fellow members and for our club. We operate in a capacity of truly serving our members. And of course, by doing so, we do this in a spirit of excellence. I am actually going to stop my screen share here because we are getting into the meat of our training session. As a presenter, I'm a firm believer of actually walking through a particular platform and giving an opportunity to show our members how the Basecamp management system works so that you can actually get a visual representation and feel of the platform. And of course, feel free again to unmute if you have any questions. I am now going to share my... Now, can everyone see where I am logged into my Toastmasters account? You can just put a thumbs up in the chat. I see Okay, we're getting some nods. Great stuff. As a Basecamp manager and as a Basecamp manager, once you log into your Toastmasters profile, you're going to scroll just a little bit down to where it says go to Basecamp. Now, while I have access to Basecamp as a regular member in both of my clubs, as the Vice President Education, we'll scroll down and see that I'm to select the club where I wish to interact as a Basecamp manager. And of course, for me, that's Sunrise Toastmasters. And this is where our Basecamp managers will log into to take a look at your members' progress. We will see in this tab that we have 3 subcategories for Basecamp management. The first, we have pending requests. Second, we have member progress. And third, manager tutorials. What I want us to focus on this evening are those member requests or pending requests. And those are the requests that we receive via email when a member submits a level completion request. That typically comes primarily to the Vice President Education, and of course, in a secondary capacity to the club presidents and the secretaries. Once you click on this pending requests, and for Sunrise Toastmasters, the last pending request was authorized this morning. So right now you will see that the queue for Sunrise Toastmasters is blank. But let's say, for example, Toastmaster Elisha Knowles is a member of this club, and she has submitted an actual level for approval. Under the Requested By tab, where you see my cursor, you will actually see the member's name, and where it says training, it will reflect, of course, the path that the member is on. The type, of course, would be the level, whether it be level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or of course a path completion, and the date that the member has submitted the request. For you as the Basecamp manager, you will see 2 options: a check mark, a green check mark, indicating that that you are prepared to approve the member's request, or a little X that indicates that what you plan to do is actually decline the member's request. Once you've gone ahead and you submitted your particular option, whether that be to approve the request or to decline the request, a dialog box will actually populate, which will allow you to type in any notes or comments that you feel are necessary or pertinent for this particular request. For me as the VPE, I always type in a congratulatory note for the member, again, celebrating the fact that they have indeed leveled up in the Pathways program. Now, when you receive a member request, and this is something that's a great practice that I do, and I'm actually going to use my back button, and I'm going to go into the Paths and Learning tab. And the reason why I'm going to do that, because I want the option to do what we call view teams. So can everybody see at the right-hand corner where I have my cursor? I'm going to enable where it says view teams. Once you see this view teams populate, this represents the members of your club who are currently logged in to your club's Basecamp management system. And I want to make that clear because I know that so many of us in District 47 are members of multiple clubs. If, for example, I was currently logged into Healing Communicators as my home club or the club in which I'm currently transacting with, my name would not populate on this list. Camp managers tend to have challenges with, particularly if they want to see where a particular member's progress is and what they're doing, etc. And you may freak out and you may say, oh my goodness, I know that this is a member of my club. I know he or she is on the roster. I don't see them. If in fact the member is a dual member, you just want to touch base with the member to ensure that they are actually logged in under the club in which you want to view their progress or actually approve a level. You want to ensure that they're actually submitting under the particular club where you are the Basecamp manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the progress for my wonderful president, Toastmaster Rachel Bruno. So let's say, for example, Toastmaster Bruno has submitted a level completion request for me to approve. What I find to be a good practice is I would actually go into the view teams, click on the member's name, and actually open his or her curriculum. And the reason why this is important, because we do have those instances where we have members, for example, who not only members of other clubs, but they also speak at other clubs. And so me as the VPE, I may not always have that instant access to be able to validate everything or every project that the member has done, or even to ensure that all of the parameters of what is required for the level completion has been submitted. So what I personally like to do, depending on the level submission, I will just go ahead and do just a quick recap to ensure that all of the training details are actually done and completed. Now, this may seem to be a bit repetitive because technically the member will not be able to actually activate a level completion request unless these parameters are checked off. But the reason why I find it to be important is because, again, if members are speaking at other clubs as the VPE or any other approving Basecamp manager, you actually do want to be able to validate that the member is completed or has completed their projects. And of course, I will get to that validation process in a moment. So once you have confirmed and you feel satisfied within yourself that the member has in fact completed all of the projects within a particular level, then of course you go ahead, you transition, and you approve the member's level, in Basecamp. You guys are on the ball. So what I'm actually about to do is I'm going to go back to my Toastmasters home screen. Is everyone now viewing my home screen in Toastmasters? So I'm now navigating away from the Basecamp management profile. And can everyone now see my regular Toastmasters login screen? And if Charmaine can give me because she's actually the person who then I know that I am good. Yes, I see Charmaine. Slowly, so while that's populating. Oh, goodness. All right. So now that you have approved the members level on the Basecamp manager side, we also have a second step. And this second step I find in interacting with our Basecamp managers is a step that is typically missed or overlooked. One, you have another step, and that step requires you to also submit those reports or that education award via Club Central. So once you have already gone ahead and you've processed the approval in Basecamp, you then need to return to your Toastmasters profile. And what you're going to do, you're going to scroll just a little bit down to Leadership Central, and you're going to click on Club Central. And again, I'm going to interact with Sunrise Toastmasters, where I'm the Vice President Education. So let's say, for example, in the scenario in the example that I provided, if Toastmaster Rachel Bruno submitted and I approved that level, for that education award to be reflected on Toastmaster Bruno's profile, I must complete this step under Club Central where it states Submit Education Awards. Once I've gone ahead and submitted the Submit Education Awards, it's going to ask me to go ahead and and select the member. Now, typically, of course, once I had or drop down populates, which asks the approving officer to select the member who you're submitting the award for. And in this instance, you will see, of course, the members of our club populate. And for example, so let's go back and we'll use Rachel again as an example. So let's say I go ahead and I select Toastmaster Rachel Bruno as the member. And this is where it gets a bit tricky. So let's say Toastmaster Bruno, she's already completed her level 1. She's now submitting a level 2 completion. Automatically, the only option that will populate at a time will be her next level. So that's very important. And the reason why I want to make this part clear is because where our Basecamp managers have challenges is where members are submitting multiple levels for approval. And then they get a bit nervous when they see that, okay, I'm only showing or reflecting the members level 2 as populating, okay? But again, the system is designed on the club central side to acknowledge first in order and preference, of course, level 2, 3, 4, etc. So if the member actually were to submit multiple levels at the same time for approval, as the Basecamp manager, you must approve those levels sequentially. So in the case of Toastmaster Bruno, if she submitted a level 2 and 3 for my approval, I will have to go in, click on her level 2, and then another dialog box will open to ask if I am sure that I want to submit the award. I will click yes. That level 2 will approve, and then I will have to redo this particular step, which means I go back into Club Central, and there are 2 options once you submit a level. One will say, do you wish to return to Club Central? The other is, do you wish to submit another education award? And in this instance, I will redo the step. I will click once again or select Toastmaster Rachel Bruno's name, and at that point, her level 3 in presentation mastery will populate. Are there any questions thus far on multiple level completions? Toastmaster Strong Mason, you're
Yes.
acknowledged.
Okay, so question, what if they complete level 3 before they complete level 2? Is that a possibility? And would level 3 then come up? Or would they have to complete level 2 first?
That is a great question. And thank you for that, because I'm about to actually move on to that particular step. And I've actually had a scenario where I had a member submit a level 4 completion, but her level 3 was not yet done. When I went through that validation process that I just shared with everyone on the call about ensuring that the member has completed all of her projects, she had in fact completed all of her level 4 projects, but for her level 3, she had one more project to complete. Again, because Club Central is the more temperamental platform, what happens in that case, I had to advise the member that I will need her to complete her level 3 so that I can submit her level 3 and her level 4. Basecamp would have allowed me to approve her level 4, but on the Club Central side, it will not repopulate to level 4 just because the level 4 is reflected as completed on one platform. And so that's why it's important when we go through pathways training with our members, and we share with our members that they are free to navigate and move about the pathway system in whichever order that they feel comfortable with. However, with this current platform of submitting education awards, that is not a seamless process. And so just to ensure that we don't have a situation, because what would have happened in that case, Toastmaster Mason, if we had gone ahead and just submitted this education award, it would have automatically cleared her level 3 in error and clear her level 4, which would have been correct. And one of two things would have had to have happened. We would have had to write to education to ask that the level 3 is reversed, which is cumbersome, or simply allow the member to what we call catch up. But we don't like to do that either. Again, we spoke about accurate reflection of what our members are doing. And so we don't want to see a level 3 populating, because once you as the Basecamp manager submits this, this is reflected on the dashboard, whether or not the member has actually completed all of her projects in Basecamp. Once we're submitted on this platform, it reflects that the member has completed the level, and it goes towards the club's goal. So that's actually a great question. When you see that happens and when you're doing your checks, we don't want to just click, 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 click. We actually want to validate what our members are doing. And so that will require having a conversation with your member to say, hey, I need you to complete, and a lot of times it's just one project that may be missing. And that's your opportunity to schedule your member on the program to ensure that the level is properly completed. But what we don't want to do, unfortunately, this system does not recognize skipping levels on the Club Central side. Toastmaster, you're acknowledged.
Good evening, everyone. Good night, distinguished Toastmaster Linda. I had a question because I know what you're speaking of is in regards to if a member is skipping levels in the same path. How does that apply though if you have a member who's in two separate paths in regards to submitting their education awards? Is that still an area of conflict as well?
Okay, great question, Toastmaster Hasty. I know it is not. So in the case of using Toastmaster Bruno, she's registered in one path. But let's say, for example, you have a member who's simultaneously working on two paths. So for me, I have dynamic leadership open. I have persuasive influence open. If I submit a level completion for persuasive influence, what would have happened in that case when I click on my own name? Both paths would have populated for wherever I am in the path. So for right now, I'm on level 4 in dynamic leadership. So for me, if I clicked on my name, I would see online learning, dynamic leadership level 4, and then online learning, persuasive influence level 1. So as the Basecamp manager, you would actually get that email to reflect which level and which path the member is submitting the level request for, and you will approve on the Club Central side accordingly. But no, if the member is working on two paths simultaneously, those two will not conflict, and he or she is free to move in between both paths. But when you're talking about skipping levels in the same path, it becomes problematic on the Club Central side, and that's a great question. Toastmaster Adams, you're acknowledged.
Thank you. I have a comment and a question. I just approved 2 awards earlier this evening. I did the Basecamp approval first, then I came into Club Central and was a little unsure that I had done everything correctly. So I went and downloaded a club roster and was able to use that club roster to verify that it showed the current level approval for the 2 members I had submitted. I found that was somewhat reassuring, thought I would share that with the group. The question I have, you may be getting to a little bit later. I have not seen the Distinguished Club Program dashboard update yet with those 2 new awards. Do you have any idea about how long that takes for the DCP dashboard to update?
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Adams. Now, to my knowledge, that once a member's education level has already been approved, I find that it reflects the following business day. So if you did that this evening, when you pull up your club's dashboard tomorrow, those education awards should reflect.
Excellent.
And I've never really encountered an issue otherwise. The only way that it would not reflect if there was an error or a challenge in the way that it was approved. But 9 times out of 10, I take note of the fact that the next business day, you will see the education award will reflect on the DCP board or on your club's dashboard or education reports.
Thank you. The roster updated immediately, so I was a little concerned when the DCP dashboard didn't. Thank you.
You're welcome. Distinguished Toastmaster Charmaine Goodman Davis, you're acknowledged.
TTM Clark, we have a comment from Toastmaster Carolyn Perez, who made it known that she approved a path by mistake. As someone or the Toastmaster in question did not complete the entire, I'm assuming because she just has, I approved by mistake, a few that did not complete. So if you can respond to that. And additionally, she says she's about to board a flight, so she's going to have to disconnect, but she's very interested and has enjoyed it thus far.
Thank you so much, Distinguished Toastmaster Charmaine Goodman Davis. To answer the member's question, in the event you have erroneously approved a level or a path, the only way to reverse that is to write to education@toastmasters.org, education program at toastmasters.org, explain the nature of the error, and then TI will actually have to go into the system and make that reversal. And I have encountered or heard of a few experiences where TI has had to do that, and I have actually found that they've been quite efficient in processing those particular reversals. Once it's like one or two, and it isn't something that may be in batches, but I've encountered that before with one of my clubs, and I think education reversed it probably within 24 hours. The reversal was processed. So to answer the member's question, once they write to education program at toastmasters.org, and just the reversal can be processed in that way. Toastmaster Belinda, and I really do not want to mispronounce your last name. So Toastmaster Belinda, you're acknowledged.
So I had the opposite problem. I knew I had completed. I was concerned that our dashboard wasn't really reflecting what it should. I knew we had a level 1 completion and didn't show that. So I went into my own path and took a snapshot of my completion of a level 4. But when you dug deeper, I brought myself up. It showed that it was still in progress, but I had the green check by, level 4. So that kind of confused me. So I can actually email Toastmasters at their education program at Toastmasters International and see if I can get that.
From what I'm understanding, you're saying is that it's reflected as completed in the Basecamp manager side. You're seeing the check marks. Is that what I'm understanding?
No,
of your
seeing
situation?
My own check mark.
Right,
that it showed, completion. I didn't put it, I completed it, I submitted it, it got checked. But, there's an area you can go to where you can pull everybody's name up. And it showed that level 4 was still in progress for me when it had actually been completed a long time ago. It was from a different club.
Okay. In that instance, that may be what the challenge is the communication between the two clubs. Because earlier I spoke about how if you're a Basecamp manager in one club and you have a member who is a dual member, you would have to actually ensure that the member is logged into your particular club as it relates to the progress reports. If they're not logged in or submitting through your club where you're the Basecamp manager, you won't be able to see or really verify that particular project. So to answer your question, if initially it was submitted a long time ago under another club, then you won't be able to bring that across in a new club, because it won't populate in that way because the initial approval was done under another club. So let's say if I was to submit on the Basecamp side while I'm logged into Healing Communicators, I can't then go into Sunrise Toastmasters and process that approval, if that makes sense.
Okay, so
that sounds like an education issue, unless you happen to still know or communicate with the Basecamp manager from
Yes, I do.
Club where it was submitted.
Okay.
And if you're still on that roster to bring
I shouldn't even bother then. I shouldn't bother
then you may
trying to
have to have the Basecamp manager in the club where you initially to remediate.
Okay, so I shouldn't even bother to try to complete the level 5 in my new club because it sounds like it won't count.
Well, I would say for that one, that is a bit of a unique scenario. So I would write to education at education programs at Toastmasters .org
Okay.
as it relates to that, because that is a pretty unique situation. But thank you. That's a great question. Distinguished Toastmaster Charmaine. Oh, I'm sorry, Belinda. Was that your question?
I'm done.
Did you have another question?
You know, level 5, you get some good points. So that's what I was wondering if I should forget it or try for it. Okay, thank you. I had trouble.
No, I would
I'm sorry
definitely
I
say
was
try
late.
for it, but thank you. Got it. Thank you so much, though. Great question. Distinguished Toastmaster Charmaine Goodman Davis.
Yes, GTM Clark, we have a question from Toastmaster Hernandez, who is asking, how does a member get access to a second path before they finish the first path?
Okay, great question. And I will be so happy to dive much deeper into this next week, Wednesday, same time, same place for our Pathways office hours, but I'll answer that quickly. A member can enroll in as many paths as he or she wants at any time. So right now, I'm midway through my 4th path, and I just enrolled in my 5th one this afternoon. There is nothing system-wise that prevents the member from enrolling in as many paths as he or she wants. One thing that I always want to reinforce that the pathways levels belong to the member and not to the club. So the member can enroll in how many paths he or she chooses, and it creates no conflict. So thank you for that question. All right, being so mindful of the time, I see we're at 8:10, and there is absolutely something that I want to share, and I love the questions. And I actually touched on it earlier, and this is about validating your members' projects, particularly when you have members who are members of multiple clubs or who speak on other clubs' programs. And there are 2 ways that I find we can actually validate this, or just to ensure that the members are completing their projects. And of course, the first is through utilizing our Free Toast Host website. And I am definitely hope to see so many of you on that particular training later in October. But of course, those clubs and Basecamp managers who are familiar with the platform, we know that that's a great way to keep and store and have access to the historical data of when our members are speaking, when they're evaluating, when they're serving as table topics masters, those roles which can be utilized or applied to a project when we're speaking within our own clubs. Of course, we have access to that information, right? Through the education programs in our respective clubs. One great practice that I want to really drive home to everyone on this call, when you have members who are speaking on the education program in other clubs where they are not members, and you find that a member is submitting a level request. So let's say, for example, you have a member who's submitting a level 1 approval. And I use level 1 because the level 1 has the highest number of program. You may take note that the member has spoken maybe twice at your club, but they're now submitting a level 1 completion. So you want to verify within yourself that the member has in fact completed the other projects on the level 1 in addition to completing an evaluation. And a great rule of thumb, and I implore particularly our Vice President Educations on the call, when you note or when you become aware that your members are speaking on the programs in other clubs, reach out to the Vice President Education of the club where your member is speaking. You want to be able to have access to your members' evaluation forms. I find that in the absence of course, having your Free Toast host where you have access to your information, we should be able, particularly as VPEs, and of course, secondarily as our presidents and secretaries, we should be able to validate that our members are actually completing these projects before we feel so comfortable in just doing a click through and approving our members' education awards. Now, of course, as Toastmasters, we are all called to uphold integrity. And I've always stated that the Pathways platform really operates so much like an honors system, where we should be able to trust, of course, that our members are completing projects. And of course, they are doing those things which need to be done to demonstrate their proficiency and progress in the program. But a great rule of thumb, I'm a vice president in education, and when I speak at other clubs, I have all of my evaluations saved in my Basecamp documents, so that if my secretary or my president actually ever wanted to validate what I'm doing, I feel comfortable in knowing that, yes, I completed these projects, these are done, and I have the evaluation forms to substantiate my progress and my movement in the program. So I just want to share that tidbit for persons who may have a level completion and may just not be sure or certain. We have a lot of persons, vice president educations, presidents, secretaries who are new to the role, and they may feel a bit apprehensive in having an extended conversation with the member about rolling through his or her goals. So you want to ensure, as we speak, and it's so common, we speak in each other's programs, ensure that your member receives his or her written feedback so that they can have that as a support. Again, I'm a VPE. I ask for my written evaluations when I'm speaking outside of my clubs. And so I just want to ensure that we have that as a great rule of thumb and a great practice. I am going to stop here now at 8:15, and I will open the floor for members to ask any questions, any comments, any observations. Now is definitely the time, and I am here available to respond to your questions outside, of course, of the questions that have already been shared thus far. Toastmaster Adams.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you again. Our club has a free Toast site, and I was recently working to approve a completion from a member. And by going in there, discovered that when he was filling in his path and project information in our club website, he was using the wrong path. So it's something that I'm now sensitized to, that I'm going to be checking and make sure that people are populating the club website with the path that they're actually working on, because that had me doing a double take for a minute. So I thought this might be a good forum to share that observation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Adams, and great observation indeed. And because when we're utilizing the free Toast host and the pathways, the different paths are actually pre-populated, just take a moment, because they are actually in alphabetical order. And sometimes we do find that where certain paths are so close together and phonetically, they're pretty similar, and we just tend to scroll and click on, the wrong path or maybe the wrong project. And so to your point, great observation. We want to ensure that we're not only clicking on the correct path, we're clicking on the correct project. Because if you are utilizing the free Toast website, the evaluation form actually corresponds with the project that you have selected. So Toastmaster Adams, that is a great observation. And again, I would love to hear more about that when we have free Toast host training, because that's going to be really exciting for our PQD team. Do we have any burning questions, or maybe not so burning questions, about Pathways, Basecamp management? Anything, any obstacles that you may have encountered, any observations that persons here on the call can glean from? Of course, we're all here to learn from each other. And again, of course, I'm relying on my excellent facilitator to ensure that we have no additional questions, comments, or concerns. Distinguished Toastmaster Charmaine Goodman Davis. All right, so it's time for me to wrap up my training session. I want to thank everyone. I believe I should at this time yield control either to our TLI co-chair, Distinguished Toastmaster Charmaine Goodman Davis, or to our program quality director, Distinguished Toastmaster Price Polanese. Once again, District 47, you guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time out for this session.